important this morning that I start in the right tone. Because the theme is getting help. And this is meant in the tone of, well, we could all use some help sometime, not in the tone of, you need help. So just so you understand the tone. So Rachel started us off right this morning by recognizing that there's a lot of complaining in the Numbers passage. And in fact, if you read the book of Numbers, basically Numbers is the book of complaining. Just like people complain, and then Moses complains, and then God complains, and then it's the people's turn again, and they go around and around and around in this little circle. But occasionally in all of this, right, people actually ask for help and get help in all of this complaining. You know, whether complaining actually helps the situation in terms of getting help, I don't know. So the first piece of good news in getting help in the book of Numbers is that even Moses needed help. Right? So Moses, the great leader, the great prophet of God, the man who saw God face to face, even he needed help. So the first thing to know is that if you think maybe you need help, you're not the first person to need help, you're not the last person to need help. We all need help. So Moses needs help, because the people are whining and complaining, and they're going to Moses and complaining, and Moses says, "It's just enough, I'm going to talk to God." And Moses says to God, right, "Why have you treated your servant so badly?" So the first thing Moses does in looking for help is figure out, whose problem is this really? Right? Because he's Moses the leader, but it's not really his problem. He didn't ask for this job. He didn't do the plagues. He didn't bring the whole let my people go. He did that, but only because he was told to. So the first thing he did is he figured out, let's figure out whose problem this is and let them solve the problem rather than have me do it. Now I realize there are times in our lives when we get stuck with somebody else's problem, whether we want it or not. Right? That just happens. But I think even in situations like that, it's worth remembering, really, this should not be my problem. Because, I don't know, I think it just makes us feel better, if nothing else. So Moses complains to God, and God says, yeah, you really do need help, and I'm going to find you some help. So Moses goes out, right, and told the people what God said, and then he gathered 70 elders of the people. So what Moses does is he goes out to find help for himself. And one of the things he does is he finds qualified help. Because it's one thing to find help, and it's another thing to find help that can actually help. Right? And Moses could have just gone around and picked the first 70 people he saw and said, look, I'll take you and you and you and you and you, and we'll just go and we'll fix the problem. And like these people might have had no qualifications at all. But Moses said, no, I'm going to find elders, because this is an administrative problem, so I'm going to find people who are already administrators, right? Who've had some experience, who are already recognized by the people as being, sort of useful. Right? So that's our little lesson there, is when you're going to go find help, you might as well find qualified help. Now there is, in all of this, a couple of things that Moses could have done better. Right? Because one of the things that Moses seems to do fairly consistently throughout his life is only deal with a crisis when it becomes a crisis. Right? And one of the things that's often very useful to do is to actually get at things when they're little problems, before they get to be crises. So we have in this church something called the Pastor-Congregation Relations Team. And the idea is that sometimes there's problems between the pastor and the congregation, and the team meets regularly to deal with problems when they're little problems. So that if you have something, right, that you're not sure about, like what I'm doing or why I'm doing it, or things that I should be doing or shouldn't be doing, you go talk to the team, and the team talks to me, and we deal with it when it's a little problem. And so the team meets regularly, right, not just when there's a crisis, because if we wait until there's a crisis, then there would be a crisis. But so often, if you deal with problems when they're little problems, then you get to them before they're crises, and it's easier. I know it's easier just to put them off. Say, well, it's just a little problem. It's just a little problem, right? And then it gets to be a bigger. And then, well, but it's just a medium-sized problem. We'll be okay. Right? And then suddenly it's a big problem, and then we're in crisis mode. And that's sort of the way Moses does things. Is he's sort of best. He seems to be wait until things are crisis. Don't do that. The other thing about this story, if you're a Bible nerd like I am, is that you recognize this story from somewhere else. Because just back in Exodus chapter 18, a similar sort of thing happened. It wasn't a crisis back then, but it was a sort of a mini crisis for Moses. So this is just when the Israelites got out of Egypt and they were sort of heading toward, they didn't know, right? But they are Mount Sinai. And his father-in-law finds him. His father-in-law is Jethro. And his father-in-law, I don't know how Jethro found him. Right? But I guess, like 500,000 people wandering the desert created a lot of dust. And Jethro goes, look at all that dust is. I'll go figure out what's going on. So he finds him. And he finds Moses like terribly, terribly busy. Right? Because all these, the people are having problems. And Moses feels the need to fix them all on his own. And his father-in-law says to him, why are you doing this? Why don't you, get yourself some help here? Okay, and so Moses does. But here we are, 6 months later, a year later, we don't know how long, not very long later, and Moses is back in crisis mode. So apparently, he hasn't been using the help he created for himself, right? He created a system for himself, whereby there are people to help him, and apparently he's forgotten all about that already. So one of the lessons in here is, use the help you've got. Right? Once there are people there to help you, and you know who to go to in times of crisis, right? Use those people. Because they're, right? So here we are together, right? And some of us are good at things. So, so use each other. Before there's a crisis, or during the crisis, but don't forget about the help you have. So then there was that odd Mark passage. Right? That very interesting story that was read in Mark. And the first thing we learn is that there's somebody outside of Jesus' little group that's doing something, that's healing people in Jesus' name. And John is going, that shouldn't be right. He should, we got to keep this inside. But typically in the Gospel of Mark, right, Mark hates this idea of keeping it all in here. Mark says, no,